The Prime Minister today confirmed Canada will be sending 69 military advisors to Iraq. That important new detail on Canada's deployment to the region comes as MPs get set to hold an emergency debate in the House of Commons on the crisis in Syria and Iraq and the rising threat of the militant group ISIS. That gets underway very soon. Is Canada's commitment to the international coalition enough? Are combat troops required to defeat ISIS? Should there be a vote in Canada's Parliament on the engagement? Let's get some MPs in on this. Joining me now, James Bezan, the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Defence. Beside him is Paul Dewar, the NDP Foreign Affairs critic, and Mark Garneau, the Liberal Foreign Affairs critic, both of them who were recently with Mr. Barrett in Iraq. Let's start with the NDP. Mr. Dewar, do you think there should be a vote? Why do you think there should be a vote on this mission? The government said it's not a combat mission.
Well, look, we've said from the beginning there should be a debate and a vote. Well, one reason is that the Prime Minister, before he was Prime Minister, campaigning to be Prime Minister, said that should happen. He signed a document with Jack Layton in 2004, wanting to change the standing orders, the orders of the House of Commons, to do that. He again said it when he was a candidate to become Prime Minister 2005-2006. And then when he was Prime Minister, he stated that in his speech from the throne in 2007. So we think that we agree with him on this. And, you know, Evan, this is so important because you heard today from the Prime Minister when Tom Mulcair asked how many people are actually on the ground. He said 69, and then we hear from Minister Baird on your show, I believe, is that, well, no, we're not, we're ready to deploy that many. We have to have some clarity as to how many we're sending, what the mission is, before we send anyone overseas, and that's because this is a very serious thing. Politicians are the ones who decide to send our Canadian forces abroad and put them in harm's way. We better be damn sure we know what we're sending them into and for how long.
It is the government's prerogative. They can send this on without consulting with the other parties, and they say it's not. They say it's not a combat mission.
Well, come on. I mean, you have the Prime Minister's own words saying when we send our forces abroad. So, you know, if he wants to say, well, they're not really. I mean, they are forces. They are being sent abroad. We take him on his word on that. We believe that should happen because we should have it.
Why didn't the NDP ask for a vote on it today?
Oh, we did. We asked for a vote on this. We can't. It's an emergency debate, and we believe it's the government's responsibility to do that. Look, you know, the government is too cute by half when they say, "Oh, the opposition can have an opposition day, have a motion, and then have a vote." It's the government's responsibility, as Mr. Harper said. They're the ones who have the power to do this, so it's incumbent upon them to live up to their own word and do this. Right. This is extremely important for us.
Mr. Bezan, we heard, or at least I thought I heard, in QP today that the Prime Minister, in answering Mr. Mulcair, said there are 69 Canadian special operations advisors on the ground in Iraq. Can you just confirm this number?
It's 69 that are in the process of being deployed. We are in the process of putting 69 people into northern Iraq to assist Iraqi security forces in the north in a tactical and strategical advisory role. These will be mainly individuals that are going to be in combat centers, providing their expertise, especially on counterterrorism, from the Canadian Special Operations Force. And they specialize in training trainers and in training military units from around the world, and they have in-theater experience.
So I was just trying to get clarification. I guess there was some misunderstanding after the QP today. So do Canadians know how many are on the ground right now?
Well, as I've been saying for a while, we had the advanced team there that did the assessment. They're still there, and the other members are joining that team on the ground.
And finally, because the question is how big could that number go? If the number increases beyond 69, will the government go to Parliament and talk about that? Because I guess it's an indication of how significant the contribution Canada is making there will be. If it increases beyond that, will Canadians know?
As we've said from the beginning, that we're going to be transparent and accountable. That's why we had parliamentary committee hearings on this last week. That's why we've been answering questions in the House. That's why there's an emergency debate tonight. And so the number is 69, and they're there for 30 days. And at that point in time, then we'll do a review of what progress we've made on the ground and how we move forward, or whether or not we feel that we're making a difference. And then we'll consult with opposition parties, as we have from the beginning of this, to ensure that Parliament is respected, and making sure that, as we always said, this is a non-combat role, and we really believe in providing the same type of expertise and advice that other coalition partners are doing in other areas of the region.
Well, Mr. Garneau, you're listening to that. What do you make of that?
Well, as I said from the beginning, we understand that there were 4 advanced party soldiers in northern Iraq and discussing with the Kurdish forces exactly what Canada's role would be in terms of an advisory role. And I'm assuming that the 69 that the Prime Minister talked about today is the result of the decision that many special ops forces will be providing that advisory role, unless it included also some of the Canadian military that are flying on the Globemaster and Hercules aircraft, and they've been there for some time as well. So it's not 100% clear to me whether they're part of the 69.
Mr. Dewar, what do you hope to accomplish tonight with this debate?
Well, one is to try and nail down some answers on commitments. As we just heard, we couldn't even get clarity on a very simple question Mr. Mulcair asked yesterday and then again today. It sounded initially like the Prime Minister was saying we have 69 people on the ground. Now it's, well, they're ready to be deployed. So, getting some clarity is where this is going, what these people will be doing, how long the commitments will be, because everyone understands one thing: this isn't going to be over in 30 days. And I have to, challenge my colleague here. We were not consulted on this deployment and commitment. I and Mark were over in northern Iraq and Baghdad with Minister Baird on assessment of what Canada could do, and I came out of that experience, and I'm sure Mark would agree, there's a huge dilemma here for everyone to get behind, and that is the refugee crisis and protection of minorities and prosecuting those who are individuals involved in these horrific war crimes. I want to know some answers on that as well. Minister Baird at committee said to me, yes, 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 and yes to all the things I asked him in terms of what the government would do in all those areas, including sexual violence and prosecuting those who are responsible for that and helping victims. So we want to know, where's the announcements on that? We've heard that we're moving arms from Prague, from the Czech Republic into theater, but what about those other commitments on the humanitarian side? So all these things need to be nailed down.
Just for time purposes, Mr. Bezan, can you answer any of those?
Well, we've already committed over $28 million in humanitarian aid, and you can't deliver humanitarian aid until you secure the region. So these things go hand in hand.
True. Right now they can help.
No, you have to do it hand in hand.
No, the refugee camps can be done right now.
And we're providing aid to neighboring areas that are taking in those refugees, displaced people because of the violence. But if we're going to stop the displacement of people, if we're going to be able to reach out to those that are trapped behind the ISIL line and being persecuted because of their ethnicity or religious beliefs, we want to make sure that we secure those regions so we can provide the humanitarian relief. And this is something about 30 coalition partners working together to try to bring that foreign aid.
All right, I got about a minute. Just on a yes or no, tomorrow President Poroshenko of Ukraine will be here. Well, I guess he arrives tonight. He may ask Canada to change its support for Ukraine and provide military aid, not non-lethal military aid, but even weapons. Let me go just down the line. Would the Liberals, Mr. Garneau, support Canada changing position and now helping the Ukrainians with military arms?
No, not at this point. At this point, we believe that sanctions is the right approach to take, plus what we have done militarily up until now with relation to our involvement with NATO. That is our position at this point, and we believe that it's going to take time for the sanctions to work. They are going to continue to be ratcheted up, and eventually they will bite in Russia.
Mr. Dewar?
Strengthen sanctions. We've said that, including going after Putin's friends. No to the military, hard military support, and let's help with the economic stimulus that they need.
And Mr. Bezan?
I'm looking forward to the meetings tomorrow with President Poroshenko, as well as his words to the entire Parliament, as well as to Canadians in his address. And I'm very proud of the further sanctions we announced today. Minister Baird announcing 5 more individuals and a handful more entities, including one of the largest banks, to ensure that they are kept from gathering any more financial aid from the rest of the world to fund the military aggression. And what we're seeing today in Crimea with the buildup of Russian forces in Crimea is very disturbing.
So, you didn't answer the question, though. Door closed on hard military?
We've supplied non-kinetic military equipment. I've accompanied some of that equipment going over there. And, of course, we'll see what happens tomorrow.
So, door closed on hard military?
I'm not going to deal with hypotheticals.
James Bezan, Paul Dewar.
But I will say very quickly that the government promised $200 million in loans last March. we're still waiting for that to happen. I suspect it will happen tomorrow, but it took a long time for that to happen.
All right, I got to leave it there. I know there's an emergency debate going on. James Bezan, Paul Dewar, Mark Arnold, thanks for that. They are off to that emergency debate in the House, and I appreciate their time.